Why are so few indoor vertical farms profitable? And this clicker doesn't, oh, works. First about Urban Crop Solutions. We're a small Belgian startup, ready to scale up, and we don't operate farms, we build them. How do we build them? Well, we always feel that it all starts with the plant. So for the last 5 years, we've done what everybody does. We've built our own little lab, started experimenting, see how to build a plant growth recipe, what type of LED spectrum, etc., etc., etc. Now I can tell you the biology works. Okay, we have over 200 plant recipes today. So over the last couple of years, we started selling container farms, right? Ready to use solutions that we can ship anywhere in the world. So that's what we do. We try to be kind of the best in that intersection between factory engineering on the one hand and indoor plant biology on the other hand. And really vertical farming has a lot of promise. And I'm sure you all heard the stories. This is real, right? The sustainability story is real. That's actually why I put a big chunk of my savings into vertical farming. Maybe a little bit about myself. I have a quite extensive corporate background. I worked for 9 years in the US. I'm a Belgian engineer. Ended up running the company I grew up in. 700 million euro, 4,000 people, publicly quoted in Brussels. Then went over, got headhunted to another company, and 2.5 years later I got fired. 2 profit warnings, board says bye-bye. So obviously I got a chunk of change, and I said, okay, now what? So I looked to buy my own company, and then I ran across Urban Crop Solutions. First as a potential investor, but then when I did the tour with Maarten van der Kruis, the founder, I said, man, you know, this is such an exciting stuff. I want to be part of this. I want to run this and take this global. However, yes, the sustainability story is real. It does save 95% of water use. It does save the soil. It doesn't use the soil. Hydroponics works. The technology works. The biology works. So really the promise of delivering healthy and tasty food for 365 days a year is true. But you need 3 legs on a stool, right? You have the technology that works. You have the biology that works, but it's still so expensive. Think about the retail prices of regular greens in your city. You can buy today, in the wintertime, beans from Kenya flown in through a very efficient supply chain, also 365 days a year, right? So vertical farming is competing with greenhouses, with traditional open air field farming, but then supported by very efficient supply chains that have been honed and made more efficient over decades. A plant factory today, and actually the picture on the right that you see there is the one that we have built about 4 years ago as a proof of concept. That's also the one that we started to use to make our own plant growth recipes. You have to count capex, 2,750 euros per square meter. Compare this with a modern state-of-the-art greenhouse today, that's only 700 euro per square meter, growing surface. It's really square meter per square meter growing surface. And then obviously in a lot of countries, how do you depreciate land? I mean, most of the farmers, you know, don't look at their land as a cost. I mean, they're a cash-based business in a lot of cases. Also, why pay electricity if the sun shines for free? And then there's a lot of risks. I've heard horror stories about huge greenhouses, 40,000 square meter today, in this day and age, is the standard size. One pest, a whole harvest, sometimes a year and a half before they get the disease out of their greenhouse. The same issues exist in indoor farming today. It's lower, it's much more controlled, it's much more contained, but still, it's a risk. And I have my previous background in manufacturing, and then, you know, if you have an issue in your factory, you typically lose production for that minute or that hour or that day. In farming, you lose a whole harvest. In farming, you lose 4 to 6 weeks worth of production. It's huge, right? So you have a very high upfront CapEx business with a business model that has the ability to cripple your business, stop your business continuity, so you can be bankrupt 2 years later. So the economics are still not there yet. This is a little complex slide. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things on that slide, and then I'll come back to it. The large-scale plant factory, this is a model that kind of tries to explain it a little clearer, is typically for growing surfaces over 5,000 square meters. You're talking about an initial investment of about 13 million euro for that 5,000 square meters. And you're talking about approximately 2,750 euro per square meter. It's a huge upfront capex. So what have you seen? Yes, there are worldwide a couple of these large-scale plant factories, but typically for people that know their market, people that have a captive audience, that know exactly which crop they're going to sell, at which price, what are the specifications, how high does the plant need to be, how green does the leaf need to be, etc., etc. But most of the people getting into vertical farming come from outside of the industry. They don't really understand what they want to do yet. So the bulk of what's been installed globally are these things called container farms, right? So you take a 40-foot reefer container, which you can buy very cheap in China. You fill it up with your technology and you ship it ready-made to your customer, whether that customer is in Singapore or in Canada or somewhere in Dubai. Their prices per growing square meter range between 2,000, that's our Farm Pro, by the way, or 3,200, right? Today we have about 25 of those container farms installed and operating worldwide. So let me give you an example. So romaine lettuce in a container farm, what does that cost? To give you an idea on what that container farm looks like, this is an example of Vet Veggies. It's in Arkansas. It's Army veterans that have built a very nice brand, go to local farmers markets and fetch a premium price, which obviously pays for their very high cost production. The inside is on the right. We've developed in our first generation kind of a carousel, which takes out a lot of the labor cost, because the crop actually comes to you, right? And that carousel is actually moving hydroponic gullies or gutters, as you see one here and as you see one here. So at the top end of the layer, you see actually the finished crops ready to be harvested coming out. So that's, in essence, the system that we have. But if we look at the economics, and sorry, I mean, hard facts are figures. I'm going to have to bore you with Excel. I guess that's why the smartphone is invented. So if you lose me, you can watch your smartphone. So for a piece of romaine lettuce of 102 grams in this Farm Pro container farm that has 69 square meters of growing surface, you can get a net yield of 68 kilogram per square meter per year. 68 kilogram. By the way, we communicate in net yield. I mean, there's, I've seen numbers in terms of yields. We talk net yield, really what ends up going to your customer, right? You also have yellow leaves that you need to take out that your customer won't be willing to pay for, okay? So if you multiply the 69 by 68 by 350 days, so we allow 15 days for downtime, cleaning, disinfection, you can grow about 4,500 kilogram per year in one container farm. One container farm is costing 137,000. So if you look at the OPEX, so your operational costs, and we took European type costs, You see low-skilled, medium-skilled, electricity, water, seed. Look at how low water is, 44 euro in water. Substrate, fertilizer, CO2. Yes, we add CO2, right? Plants need CO2, and actually we pump extra CO2 so they grow faster. You come out with this type of cost. But I think the best way to look at it is per kilogram. So your depreciation is about 3.2 euro per kilogram of romaine lettuce. Here you see labor, blue collar, white collar, electricity, seeds, maintenance, other, that's it. 11 euro. So a couple of things to take away here. 11 euro is a lot, right? Here in Europe, here in Berlin, you can buy romaine lettuce around the door here for 6 euro, 5 euro per kilogram. So forget it here in Berlin. This is not a competitive technology for here. Also a surprise to many is, look at this, 8% electricity. Only 8%. So really, if you want to crack this and improve this, you need to work at the upfront capex and you need to work at your labor cost. If you compare, can this be profitable? Well, in Europe, it's 5 euro per kilo retail. In the US, though, it's 22 euro per kilogram. You may be surprised, the east coast of the US is actually a target market for us. Why? If you eat a Waldorf salad in New York, the salad actually comes from either California or Mexico. That's 4,000 kilometers away. That's the same as from here to Moscow and back. So a consumer in New York does not know what really fresh salad tastes like. I mean, it's been in a cool truck for 4 days. Then it's been another day in the store, and then hopefully he buys it or she buys it. Then you can ask the question, how many days will it survive in her fridge? So yes, there's people that make a winning business based on this price, and also based on the freshness and the taste. But it's very hard to do. So in places like New York, in places like Singapore, it starts making sense, but it's very difficult to sell retail, right? Wholesale prices, you have to divide this by 2. So in New York, a wholesale price would be 11 euro. Well, I'm sorry, you can't make money selling wholesale in New York. I have a second example, Genovese basil in the same container farm. Full production cost is 19 euro per kilogram. And there you see, okay, New York, 80 euro per kilo. Starts making sense. So that's why today in the vertical farming industry, basil is by far the #1 crop. So today, the whole vertical farming industry is niche markets. First you have niches driven by geography. The northern hemisphere, Scandinavia, Canada, where there's not enough light. So even if you build a greenhouse, a highly sophisticated greenhouse, you really need to add a lot of LED light, a lot of costs to grow something, even in the winter months. I just talked about East Coast US. A very interesting one is we just sold one 2 weeks ago to Tahiti, right? I mean, high-end hotels, they don't get any fresh salads. People with a lot of spending power are going to the restaurant. They want to get the same salad as they get at home. So there you can actually get paid for the high cost because there's no alternative. In Europe, very few. I mean, the kind of Silicon Valley for horticulture is Holland, and also Belgium, of course. There you see a lot of showcase farms, but really profitable commercial growers in Europe, it's very hard to do. I just told you what the retail prices are. And it's easy to understand. Here in Europe, we have the perfect climate to grow just about anything. And if it's winter, we still get it from Spain, which is just a day and a half drive away from here. Middle East is coming up, especially metropolitan areas. Singapore is investing heavily, just like the Middle East, because obviously, you know, it's too hot to even grow anything into a greenhouse. I mean, there are greenhouses there, but the electricity load to cool that, to ventilate it is huge. And obviously the water cost is tremendous. So, niche markets. Another niche market is people that have found interesting value chain models based on this new technology. And that's also what when I first did the tour with Martin, our founder, my comment was, man, this feels like the 3D printing technology 25 years ago. You know, I have a history in window making, right? And I remember looking at the first 3D printed window. But back 25 years was the same question. Yeah, you can make anything you want in different materials. But is it profitable? Is it low cost enough? And that's the code we need to crack as an industry. We simply need to reduce that full unit production cost to a point where we can expand that niche. I mean, it's never going to replace open field farming. I mean, this technology will always be too expensive to make staple crops. It's something that is complementary with open field and with greenhouses. The IKEA example is a nice one. There you see two of our farm pros on the parking lot of the IKEA store in Malmö. And their idea is actually very simple. They say today, in our restaurants, both for our employees and for our customers, we are flying in greens from Portugal, 2,500 kilometers away. What if we would grow them on our parking lot? So for about a year and a half now, they're testing our technology. We're ready to go into the next phase there. And their idea is to have in their restaurant food that's been grown 50 meters away. And obviously, what's in it for them? They want it at the same cost, and we're about there yet in a lot of locations. Obviously, it's not going to work for Ghent, Belgium, but it works already for Toronto. It works already for Malmö. And there, they can give the consumer an experience they can't get on Wayfair.com or Amazon.com. Right? They can take their kids. They can show the farm. The farm is going to have a window at the side. And they can say, hey, look, see, this has been grown here. So, still a niche. How do we improve our full unit costs? I just told you, we work on CapEx, we work on OpEx, and then mainly labor, and we need to work on yield. Because yield really works on every line item of the profit and loss statement. So this is our new invention. We will launch this next week, September 9. And we call it the Modulex. And it's really based on an idea that's been floating around our company for a couple of years now. And it's called the bench carousel. So actually we kept the idea of having a carousel that is going from the front to the back of the container and back around. So the crops actually come to you. What we're going to say in our marketing is every bench comes to you within 90 seconds. But what we also have done is we have looked at every possible cubic square meter to maximize what we could do within that 40-foot insulated container. The Farm Pro, our first generation that I just showed you, was 69 square meters of growing surface. This one has 86. So it's 25% extra growing surface. I just talked to you about the labor, but, and this is a picture from the side of the prototype that we now have running in our headquarters in Belgium. By the way, you don't need to take pictures. You get the full presentation sent to you in PDF. We are the first company that we know of that has developed technology to make a carousel of benches go around. And I'll explain to you later why that is so important. So we designed kind of a ski lift system. Imagine a gondola with a bench laying inside, making the rounds, right? And you can just push a button. Bench number 20 comes to you within 90 seconds. So this is what it looks like. So we have two of those carousels on top of each other, right? I'm sorry. This is a rendering of how we envision a customer's farm is going to look like. So we've taken off the roof, so you can see. So it's 8 grow modules that are stacked next to each other. In the center you have your operating room where you can seed and where you can harvest. And that is the standard product as we see it. So in effect, we believe that we have created between the large-scale plant factory to the right and the smaller scale container farms for people that have only ambition to operate 1 or 2 container farms, we have developed something scalable. And to us, the target customer is somebody who wants to start out with a showcase farm, what we would call a Modulex 2 with 2 grow modules or a Modulex 4. And then as he develops his business, understands his markets, can scale all the way up to Modulex 64. Now, base price of that Modulex 8 in this case is 1.2 million. By the way, this is straight from our website. You're going to get these figures, which translates into 1,800 euro per square meter grow surface. This is a small video that gives you the construction and the configuration of a Modulex 8. So in the middle you see this operating room. You have these curtain doors that open and give you easy access to the crops. There you see the lights and the carousel. Here you see the 2 carousels on top of each other. Also, this video is readily available on our website. So, what do these economies look like? These are the exact same numbers of the Farm Pro I just showed you, resulting in a crop cost of 11 euro per kilogram. Now, with the Modulex 8, we've reduced that to 8.7 euro per kilogram, so an improvement of 23%. By the way, we have a feasibility calculator, which we offer to leads free of charge, but under certain conditions, right? That feasibility calculator is directly linked to all the net yields of every crop where we have a plant recipe for. So you can actually mix and match and say, look, I have a market, and I believe I will have a market for 6,000 kilo of basil, 5,000 kilo of 4 types of microgreens. I need 3,000 kilo of lettuce of this type, and then another lettuce. And then you can calculate based on your costs and your selling prices if you have a feasible business case. I just told you we're the first company that has been able to design a bench carousel, a carousel with benches. The big benefit of it is the density of planting. Certain crops, like basil, really grow vertical. They don't really grow horizontal. So in our first generation product, we really took the gullies that have been in existence. So the gullies are the gutters, and this is a view from the top. That have been in existence for traditional greenhouses for a couple of decades, and we've put them in a container farm, which works perfectly for lettuces, right? Lettuces grow in a half sphere. They grow just as much horizontal as vertical. However, with a bench, you can actually optimize how you plant and optimize the density of your crops, which doesn't make a difference for lettuce, but makes a huge difference for basil. So if you look at the economics here, you not only have the 25% increase in growing surface, but now you also have a 24% increase in planting density. So your yield goes up from 40 for basil. And remember, basil was one of the cash crops in vertical farming. It goes up to 64 in a Modulex. So if you run through your basic production cost calculation, you're going from 19 euro down to about 10. That's an improvement of 50%. In my past, in my corporate past, in mature industries, when we came up with an improvement with a 2% lower overall production costs, I mean, it was champagne. This is a huge breakthrough. However, the real competition is not other vertical farms. It's hyper-local. You're going to be one vertical farm in your own city. At 10 euro, maybe you have a business case, maybe not. But if we can say to the market, look, we now have a technology where for herbs, for lettuces, and also if you make the calculation for microgreens, your total full unit production cost, including capex depreciation, is around 10 euro. I think we've just expanded the niche by probably an order of magnitude. This is a little movie we made for a typical customer that we see for this technology. He starts out with a Modulex 4, sees promise, gets other customers, expands with another 4 using the same operations room, and then we've already have the design to go to a 16 and then go even on 2 floors to a 32. So what are the next steps? Obviously, we can still improve, and we have to improve. I mean, this technology still today is expensive. I mean, 10 euro per kilogram crop output is a lot in most areas. So we still look at continuous improvement in terms of factory engineering, but we believe that's now going to be incremental. I mean, if you look at the space that you need between the LED lamp and the crop canopy, more than 4 layers within one 40-foot container is going to be impossible, right? So also if you look at the technical room, I mean, our first generation had a technical room of 1.3 meters long. Now it's it's 40 centimeters long, so it's about a third. We were able to give the 2/3 away for plants to grow, right? So also there, we're reaching the limits. It will improve, but not by an order of magnitude anymore. We believe the next step is plant biology. I just talked to you about yield. Obviously, planting density gives you a big step. But think about this. This entire industry has been built on trial and error. Only recently you have Bayer announcing a partnership with Temasek, investing, I think, $30 million at Davis University in California to really look at the seed genetics and find the best possible seeds specifically for indoor farming. Because we've been developing based on seeds that have been crossbred for 30 years to grow under sunlight. Now, what do you need outdoor? Outdoor, you need disease resistance. Well, indoor, you really don't need it. Indoor, what you need is a maximum response to LED light. Well, outdoor, you don't need that because the sun is free. So we believe seed genetics will really be the next step in improvement, in cost reduction. We talked to the guys in Bayer. They say, look, now with indoor farming, we can have a new crop every 4 months in a controlled environment. We believe we can come out with seed genetics in just a 1.5 years time. By the way, for outdoor, it's 6 years before they have new seeds. So it allows really fast iteration in their development. And obviously, what we are still doing is to continue to optimize the yield to improve our own recipes. We have built our own lab. So we have 10 dedicated labs where we can mimic literally every single climate on Earth. Please go to our website. We've made one of those 3D scans so you can go and look for yourself what it looks like. Inside one of those lab units, you see everything is controlled, climate, CO2, and we can really test fairly quickly. So recap, vertical farming is still so expensive that it only finds an application in niche markets, either geography or people that have a very smart value chain idea. With our current Modulex, we now offer a technology that can run 10 euro per kilogram output. And we believe that the next wave is going to be improving yields and seed genetics. Thank you.
Questions? Anybody else? If not, then only I'm. Yes, there, okay.
First of all, thank you for the presentation, quite interesting. I was wondering, you were telling that you were selling the equipment basically for the farms. Are you also supporting the agronomical side, the growing?
Yes, absolutely. So we have our own research center with the 10 labs for people that want to grow crops that are not on our crop list today. We offer contract research, we do consulting. So what we really try to do is from the initial stage in terms of the business planning, crop selection, and see, do you really have a case? All the way to training, commissioning, startup, first harvest support, and then later on, also further support biologically. We try to give an end-to-end solution to customers. Both for university labs, who don't have their own lab, as well as for commercial growers.
I would have a question. Maybe it's a bit in detail, but on your numbers, I saw maintenance. That was quite a high. What is this maintenance?
That includes the biological support. So we have a package of a certain number of both technological support as well as biological support, because also what we've seen is and our company has done this as well, has sold this idea of, look, crops are coming out at the push of a button. That's not reality.
Yeah.
I mean, you are cramming a growth room full of living creatures that you try to grow, and things happen, both technologically as well as biologically. So you need that continued support.
So you mean you supervise a bit?
Yes,
or, yeah.
yes. We have remote access to every one of our container farms, and we follow up all the parameters of the growth module.
Yeah. Another question for the substrates, also a big number. Like, what substrate are you using actually?
For most of the crops, we're using a mix of peat and coconuts mix. Sometimes we go 100% coconuts. We actually have a PhD that is now using different substrates, even infuse them with certain bacteria to improve yield or improve the content of certain active ingredients. So our lab is especially in the area, is really in demand for PhD students.
And have you looked in hydroponic or soilless applications, aeroponics, or something without any substrate actually?
Everything we do is hydroponic, everything.
Yeah, okay, but substrate less basically growing. No?
No.
Okay. Yeah, maybe the other questions are too specific, but what about a vertical architecture of your farm? Did you look into that as well? Like, you can imagine a carousel like in a washing thing?
We looked into that. The big technological challenge that we see there is, if you go vertical, the water's going to flow down. How do you control that the plant at the top gets the same amount of water and nutrients as the plant at the bottom?
I have an idea, but let's talk about it then. Okay. Any other questions? I will look online, exactly. So, how is the CO2 footprint of locally produced vegetables, herbs, in comparison to normally grown vegetables and glasshouses, inclusive the transport? Obviously.
Obviously, the answer to any carbon footprint calculation is it depends.
Yeah.
Right? IKEA has done theirs for their store in Malmö. And obviously there you're comparing with food shipped from either, I think in the summer they got it from Belgium, and in the winter they got it from Portugal. They looked at the entire mix, compared it to the hyper-local 50-meter away farm, and obviously it came out better.
Yeah.
So the answer is, it depends. That's why I truly believe vertical farming isn't for everyone, right? Also, IKEA has calculated with renewable energy, right? So the kilowatt hours for a full container is about 170 kilowatt hours, I believe. So that's not huge, yeah? But still, that's going to make a difference. Whether in Sweden, it's very easy to get green energy. They have a mega store in Russia, and they're not going to do it there. They've excluded it because they don't have the green energy available there. So,
okay, yeah. Obviously, it depends, and mostly it's huge. If you think about Portugal to Sweden, that's even basically low when sometimes it comes from Peru or anywhere else. There are more questions. Peter Lane says, best speech on the reality of vertical farming I've heard for a long time, but speaking as an engineer, I'm looking at the engineering perspective, and for me, accessibility and maintainability is a big issue. How do you change an LED light?
you get in. So, yeah, that's really a detailed question. You take out the benches, you go in, and you change the LED light.
Yeah.
The economical lifespan of an LED light is 7 years. So we haven't seen LEDs go bad yet in the farms that we have today.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is, after 7 years, stop your farm, take all the LEDs out, and replace them.
Okay. It's also, maybe it's too technical, but have you looked into a DC busbar system, he wants to know. Basically, switching from AC to DC current.
No, we haven't looked into that.
No, yeah. Okay, another question from Ricardo Tidiosi. And do you think seed genetics will encounter regulatory problems in terms of GMO in Europe and worldwide?
We don't get into that.
Yeah.
Obviously, seed genetics in the US is much more liberty, right?
Mm.
And therefore, they're going to advance much faster. We're agnostic to this. If somebody wants us to deliver a farm to the US and he wants to do GMO-based seeds, more power to him.
Okay.
We do not test GMO-modified seeds in our labs, though.
Yeah. Okay. One more little question for me. The labor cost. What's the main labor for farming? Like you had the 20,000, I think, for a box. What's the main work to do?
It's the physical labor of putting the trays into the farm, into the grow module, and then also the physical labor to harvest it.
Okay.
I'm actually glad you asked that question, because remember the picture of the 32, Modulex 32 with the operation room? We will not sell higher than 2 levels. It's not because we can't go higher. We can. I mean, those containers are designed to be stacked 10 high.
Mm-hmm.
However, we're starting to develop an automated system actually to automate that as well. And we want this ROI to be positive as of a volume of 32 or more grow modules.
Okay, thanks. So seeding and harvesting, basically, that's
Right.
the work that's left, yeah. Okay, thanks. All questions answered, I think. Thanks. Or no, there's another one. They're back there. Okay.
So just curious as to how significant the cyber and kind of biosecurity risks are with kind of scalable vertical farming into the future.
Obviously, everything what we do and the monitoring is cloud-based. We're using one of the large PLC companies that have obviously their own security controls built in. We didn't do a deep due diligence on that. We concentrated on our indoor biology knowledge and our factory engineering. Does it pose a grave risk? I don't think so. And now I'm thinking out loud, right? What could be done wrong is that somebody would hack your system and mess with your climate or mess with your nutrients. Well, the nutrients that we're giving are the basic nutrients, right? And the NPK and a couple of others. I don't see, somebody hacking a vertical farm and create or have, poisonous food as a result. So I think there's no benefit for a hacker. and even the worst case I don't see as feasible. So to me it seems a limited risk.
Okay.